All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dan Bostrom, and I'm the Rails Member Engagement Manager. And I'm sharing my screen right here. You can see that. All right, so I'm going to kick it off today. There are three great presenters from Rails today, but I had the privilege of going first. I'm going to try to make this quick so that we can get to them, but I also do want to note that I put my presentation link into the chat. You should be able to follow along there. Okay, so based on the participant list that I'm seeing so far, it looks like there are a lot of seasoned pros out there, but I always like to take this opportunity to kind of remind you of ways to get involved. I like to say that there's probably 100 million ways to get involved with Rails, but there are five very good sort of tenets of ways to get involved. So maybe you have a new colleague that is like, what is Rails? Maybe you are just looking for a refresher yourself. When I meet people who are new to the system, I typically advise them to do these type of things to get, their solid footing. And as David from Schitt's Creek is saying, it is easy. So we're going to cover these as well as a few other things that are happening right now. The first one is L2, and as you know, we moved to a new platform in August 2020. It's been really exciting for us because there's a lot more functionality and capability. So if you take away one thing from this slide, please make sure it's the third bullet point. L2 is the gateway to everything else that we offer. If you don't have an L2 account, you can't register for CE, you can't join our email lists, you can't access deals and discounts. It's like trying to bowl without pins, in my opinion. Bad analogy, but you get the idea. Okay, so this must look familiar to most of you. It's the new L2 platform. Remember that L2 performs two main functions, which are one, it's a place to find events, and two, it's a place to find other libraries. So I'm not going to worry about the library directory side of things today, but you should play around with that. There's a lot of new functionalities that we added, including the ways that you can control a search to find other libraries by legislative district, which I really like. Very nice tool in my opinion. Okay, so let's look at events. So one thing I think people have maybe missed about the old L2 is the actual calendar look to it. And so I got to move this. I got to move my self view in here just to see it. But in the right hand corner here, I put a link to the calendar, and you can actually click that and you should be able to access kind of the old looking calendar, which looks like this. So, I didn't control anything on here, so you're not seeing any specific type of event by host or type or anything like that. You're seeing a lot more than just, RSA or Rails events. So if you click more on any of these dates, you should see all of the events that are listed, and you can kind of see what's happening for that particular day. So library workers tend to be people who love learning. And so if that describes you, I have great news. We have so much continuing education for librarians. It is shocking. I believe that it will shock you. I do want to make a distinction here. Live webinars can be found on the L2 calendar, which I just showed you. Archive webinars are found on the Rails website. So that's a pretty important thing to note. And you need an L2 account for both. So I'm just going to give you an example of something that's coming up. This is happening 2 weeks from today. The Road to Reading starts at the library. This is something that anyone with an L2 account can sign up for. Two presenters, Marion Waldman and Faith Borofsky, who are experts in the field of reading and language comprehension. They're going to be talking about struggling readers, building pre-reading skills, phonics, and a lot more. This is free. Anybody can sign up for this. Anybody in your library can access this particular event. Typically, when you were looking for that sort of event live, you would go to the L2 calendar. When the event is over and the archive version is ready to be accessed, it's not going to be on L2 anymore. You're going to need to go to the Rails website to find it. So you can. I'm not logged in right now, but if you go to the Rails website and you click services and you look under CE archives, you're going to find what's available on there. I did an archive search today, and I found that we have 10 archive programs since January 1st, 2021, and they're on so many different topics. I wanted to give you an example. This is Grab and Go library programs. This was recorded February 15th, 2021. It's 90 minutes. It's a YouTube video that you can access. It's a panel of 5 librarians who are talking, who come from youth services, teen services. There's also a school librarian. If you don't have time to watch this, you can download the slides. It's always available as long as you have an L2 account. Okay, so how do you learn about stuff like this? How do you find out about what's coming up? So the Rails e-news is a wonderful place to go, and I like to think that it's your best friend. It's always going to be there, particularly for you on Wednesdays, because that is when it comes out. We just did a study of the e-news, and we found that the average number of subscribers that received the e-news in 2021 is 6,101 people. That's a lot of people. So this is a resource where you don't need an L2 account. Anyone can sign up for this, and it's really easy to find. Okay, Dan, L2 subscription email list, continuing education. This is overwhelming. I get it. I totally get it. But there's more, and so bear with me. Okay, so email lists. If you're not subscribing to our email list, I think you're missing out on a big component of the community aspect to Rails. In a minute here, my colleagues are going to talk about some of the other amazing things that we offer, but these email lists, they're one of the most important functions, I think. They're a support group. They are the people that are doing the same roles and seeing the same problems and obstacles that you are in your own work. So if you don't know where to find them, I'm going to tell you that they're a great place to go. So this is the number of people that are subscribing to our publics email list. So this is all mostly public librarians, over 1,200 people. It's easily the biggest one that we have. A few others, the programming list has around 800 subscribers. The community engagement one has around 700 subscribers. Marketing PR has around 600. So whether you know it or not, you're part of a huge network. And I don't say these things to sort of intimidate you, but I want you to know that these things are there. If you're logged in and you clicked on the members tab up at the top, you can see the email list. This is also something you need an L2 account for. And then there's archives for each of these lists, so you can go back and look at what's available to you. In 2020, there were 1,300 messages to the programming email list, which is about 3.5 per day. So that's a ton of content. That's a ton of knowledge, a ton of wisdom. Networking groups. Okay, since the pandemic started, we've seen a huge desire to bring people together. And these networking groups play a huge role in that. We've actually created more documentation to kind of strengthen these groups. And I think it will be really helpful in the long run. So if you want to go beyond email lists, if you want to meet with people sort of individually or, as a small group, a lot of these groups meet monthly, some meet quarterly. It's a great way to find other people, again, who are doing the things that you do. We've made it more easy to create a networking group. So if you're not seeing what you're looking for in that networking group directory, you can actually create your own. I think we're kind of in a new era of the way that people are meeting. This particular event today is a great example. I think you're going to see more online meetings and more ability to connect with people across the system, across the 27,000 square mile region that we serve. Also, we do some of our own networking. We kind of host networking group events. This is an example of one that we're doing very soon. Tuesday, May 11th, we're hosting this under the Rails Online Roundtable. A Rails Online Roundtable are sort of peer-to-peer events. They're an opportunity to talk one-on-one with people. And so with this particular event, we're having a presenter, Greg Pronovitz, who's a consultant from Massachusetts. He's got a ton of experience talking to boards, but I do want to invite you all to invite your trustees, because they're going to be able to do, we're going to have some breakout rooms. They're going to be able to talk to other trustees from other libraries. We're going to try to match you as close as you can to types of libraries, in terms of size and region. So this is, we're going to record Greg's presentation. We're going to put it up on the Rails YouTube page when it's over, so you will be able to access that. But this is on L2 right now. Finally, I want to talk about the My Library Is campaign. Last night, we had a great panel presentation with 3 librarians talking about how they advocate, how they market themselves in their library. I hope you were part of that. There are so many ways to get involved with this My Library Is campaign. I hope you read our blog. I hope you are accessing some of our free resources, some of our templates. If you're not reading the blog or seeing a lot of the stuff that's going on, one way you might want to try to get involved is subscribing to the Rails marketing and PR email list, where we have regular blog updates. The blog posts go immediately to that list, and so you can find out whenever there's something new on there. This is an example of something that you can access. It's a template that you could print off and hand to trustees in their new trustee packets. You can put it in your grab and go kits. It's a wonderful way to sort of make your case for the value of the library in your everyday work. And that's it. I tried to go as fast as I can. Thank you so much for listening. I had a blast. My contact information is here. And at this point, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Anna Beam. Anna is our e-resource, e-content specialist, and she's going to talk about all the amazing e-resources that Rails has to offer. So Anna, take it over.
Thank you so much, Dan. It's going to be really, really tough to follow that. I feel a little bit like I'm back at like karaoke and you just killed your song and the KJ just called me up and now I've got to just, do my thing. So thank you so much, Dan. So yeah, my name is Anna Beam. I am the e-content specialist at Rails. I work with e-content programs, eRead Illinois, BiblioBoard, and Inky.org. I don't have fancy slides to share with you, but I do have some links I'm going to drop into the chat. I'm going to give you updates about all of those programs. I think I've probably talked to all of you before at some point about each of these things. So I'm going to give you quick updates. So first, I'm going to talk about the eRead Illinois program. This is the Access 360 platform that you all have access to as RSA libraries. And just want to give you an update on sort of what's happened with eRead over the course of the pandemic. So as you can imagine, the pandemic has had a pretty large impact on the eRead Illinois program. At the start of everything, when all of the lockdowns happened, all of the closures happened, we saw a huge uptick in circulation, lots of usage of the program, a lot more checkouts. And so that was really kind of interesting to ride that wave. But then as things went on, as the summer kind of turned into fall, and there were lots of questions about what was going to be happening, especially with schools and reopening, whether or not schools were going to open or do hybrid learning. What we really saw was a really large number of school libraries joining into the eRead Illinois program. Really, it was unprecedented. We had over 70 schools join the program just last year alone. And so late in 2020, late in the year, Rails was awarded a $125,000 grant through the Illinois Office of the Secretary of State as part of the CARES Act. And that is money that is going to be used to purchase materials for the K through 12 audience. So for that huge audience that we've now brought in because of the pandemic. So purchasing started in December. We plan to have the funds spent by the end of June, I want to say. So if you've noticed in your collection, you've noticed more materials for children and for young readers come in. That's part of the reason why is for that grant. So as of March 31, we've spent $78,238 of the grant on just over 2,500 items. So it's about 1,900 ebooks and about 580 audiobooks that have gone into the collection so far. Selections are being made with the help of Baker and Taylor's collection development specialists and also recommended to our member libraries. And so if you have suggestions for the grant, we do have a place where you can be sending us those, and I'm going to drop the link in the chat. And this is one of those things, you do need your L2 login to access this. So, as Dan says, this is the most important thing you can do is have an L2 login. You're going to need that to make suggestions for the grant for us. So head over to that website, log in, and then you can send us anything if it's, as long as it fits into the parameters, as long as it's something that's appropriate for a K through 12 audience, and as long as it's available as an ebook or an audiobook, we will purchase it if you suggest it. So I check the suggestion forms about twice every week to pull in items to purchase, and then we place orders weekly. So if you suggest something and it's available, you should see it in the collection within about a week and a half. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. That's really what's new with eRead Illinois. The other e-content platform I want to talk about, the BiblioBoard Library of Illinois. This is something you all also have access to. It's the platform that is e-content that's available to everybody in the state of Illinois. All the materials are available for simultaneous use. You don't need a library card to access it. So this is something that you all have, and RSA is really great about putting it in the catalog. So I know that you all are aware of this resource. So I wanted to talk about some of the content that we've added in the last 9 months. We have been adding content to it every few months. We did recently add about 50 more Recovering the Classics titles. So Recovering the Classics are the ebooks they're things that are in the public domain, and then they've been given new reimagined covers to help engage with a modern audience. And so we've added some great stuff. We've added like Alice in Wonderland, Boxcar Children, Great Gatsby. Once that went to the public domain, we got that right quick. And a Journal of the Plague Year. Interestingly enough, it's a great one to add this year. So those are available to you. I also want to mention that those covers, that cover art, that's a resource that you have as well. So it's not just that you have access to books to read, but you have access to that cover art. You can download it and you can use it for promotions. You can use it for programs. You can print out giant poster size versions of these covers and put them up in your library if you want. I'm also going to post the link where you can access those covers. You also need your L2 login to get those. So that's where you can go to get those covers. And then other items that were added to the BiblioBoard library collection in the last 9 months, over the summer, as part of our census grant program, we added some content. It was ebooks and sort of wellness, cooking, mental health, self-help areas. We did add a lot of children's content, educational content from Capstone. We also have a collection of books that was recently added from the Lawrence Hill imprint of Chicago Review Press. These are ebooks that focus on civil rights and human rights, specifically for historically underrepresented groups. And so that's been a collection that's been pretty popular and pretty relevant in terms of current events. So that's one that I wanted to make sure that I highlight and mention for you. There's also a collection of titles from Arcadia Press that is now available in the BiblioBoard library. And Arcadia Press is that the publisher that does those town histories, so those books that have kind of the sepia tone covers, and each town has a history about it. Those have been very popular as well. And I want to mention those specifically because everything else in the BiblioBoard library, we have it forever. The Arcadia Press titles, those we only have for a year. And so those, I believe, will only be in the collection through June. And so if that's something that you want to have access to look at, to share with your patrons, I suggest you do that now, because those will be going away sometime this summer. And so that's what's new with the BiblioBoard library. Again, as usual, just recommend that you take the link to BiblioBoard, illinois.biblioboard.com, add it to your website, make those resources available to your users, dropping that link in the chat as well, and just put it out there for people to access. I'm also going to talk quickly about inky.org, just to kind of remind you that it's there. This is the resource that provides writers access to software called Pressbooks. Like the BiblioBoard library, it's available to everyone in Illinois. You don't need to have a library card in order to access it. And what Pressbooks will allow users to do is take the things that they've written, upload them into the software, and create ebook files out of them. And then with those ebooks, ebook files that you create, you can do whatever you want, but inky.org also provides writers with a way to take those ebooks and then submit them to be included in the BiblioBoard library. So you can have your writers publishing their own ebooks and then making those ebooks available for readers to discover and read and enjoy on BiblioBoard. And so I wanted to highlight inky.org, remind you that it's there and that it's there for your users, and it's a really fantastic resource. You can also on inky.org find information about the soon-to-be famous Illinois Author Project. And if you're not familiar with Soon to Be Famous, I'm just going to take a minute to tell you about it. It is an annual contest that is run by library professionals, and it was created to kind of recognize excellence in self-publishing and recognize the way that libraries can support self-published writers and self-published authors. And I want to mention it right now because the contest is actually happening right now. The Soon to Be Famous team is currently accepting submissions for this year's contest. So if you go to inky.org or to the Soon to Be Famous website, you can learn more about that and really promote it to your local writers and to your patrons. I also want to mention it because new this year, they're for the very first year, and we're the first state to do this, they're doing a Spanish language contest for Soon to Be Famous. So there's the regular, English language contest that's been going on for a few years now. And there's also a Spanish language contest for independently published books in Spanish. So if you have a large Spanish speaking population in your community, this is a great program for them. Let me drop the link to inky.org. I'm saying it, it's just inky.org. Let me stick it in the chat here just to be consistent, all the links. And then the very last thing I'm going to mention, I wanted to briefly just say that the Explore More Illinois Museum Pass program It is up and running again. This was a program that I think almost all RSA libraries are a part of Explore More, but it was launched a little over a year ago, and then we had to shut it down because of the pandemic, and it is open again. And so check out the Explore More website to see what attractions are currently available. If you have any questions about Explore More, you can reach out to my colleague Jessica Barnes via the contact information on the Explore More website. And I will stick that link in the chat for you as well. All right, so you have all sorts of links for me. And that's it for me. I'm going to pass it on to Robert.
Morning, everybody. Good to see a lot of familiar faces and some names that I'm not so familiar with. So I'm glad I have a nice audience today. I'm just going to go over a few things that are just basic delivery things, as well as just some tidbits of information. So some of this you may already be aware of, and then others you may not. I do want to go a little bit out of order because I do want to touch on elaborate on what Dan was saying about how important L2 is. Delivery really relies on L2. So it's really important that you have updated information in L2. Delivery uses L2. We use email addresses that are associated with your L2 account to be able to send out delivery notifications. So if there's some sort of route changes, delays, any sort of cancellations, or any information that I need to send out to the libraries via our route email strings, we use those email addresses associated with that. So in order to receive those emails from me, you need to be signed up as a system delivery contact. You can either request that through our help desk, and our L2 staff can make those changes for you, or you could do it yourself. If you go to the top of the Rails website under the services tab, click on delivery, and there's a bunch of blue tabs off to your right. Those blue tabs, I believe the one for the instructions for that is called delivery help/notices. At the bottom of that page, it will show you instructions on how to set yourself up as a system delivery contact. And I do believe that directors also have the ability to make those changes for their staff. So if you are uncomfortable or unfamiliar with L2, you can always ask your director to assist. Tying in with L2 as well is our delivery help desk. For those that are not aware of our delivery help desk, again, it's very important that your L2 account is up to date. And any emails you send to our help desk are sent from the same email that is affiliated with L2. In order, when you send those emails from your L2 email, or from the email that is associated with L2 rather, it will automatically route to the correct service center. So if you are John Doe Public Library in Peoria, Illinois, it will automatically route to the East Peoria Service Center, notifying me via email, as well as my staff. A select few of my staff also have access to the help desk. And so it's not just me managing the ticketing system, it's also my staff as well. So in the event that I am out of the office or I'm tied up, my team can help assist me, and they do a phenomenal job of doing so. And I want to encourage you, if you have any questions, please use that delivery help desk for that reason, whether you have misrouted items, whether it's sorting error or a library error on labeling, if it's any sort of unexpected delay that hasn't been communicated, please utilize that help desk for those reasons. And so my third item I want to cover is the delivery count. Some of you may be familiar with what was once called a delivery fine count. We have now changed the name of that to be less confusing to the delivery count. We have suspended those in light of the pandemic. The counts were temporarily paused due to the pandemic and many library closures. And now with libraries starting to resume normal service, we are going to be asking libraries to participate again, and that will be happening on the August delivery count. More information will follow, but I figured while I have a captive audience, I could at least give you a heads up on that. For libraries that are unfamiliar with the counts, if it's new information, something you don't know about, the state library asks both library systems, both Rails and Heartland, to request delivery volume counts from the libraries. And so the in your outgoing items, in your outgoing bins, you'll be counting each and every item that you put into those bins that are outgoing for Monday through Friday in one given week. We do this quarterly, every fiscal year. And then we also audit. We randomly select 25% of the libraries on each count. Therefore, after 4 counts, we have 100% audited through the fiscal year. And in doing so, there's sometimes some discrepancy. So you may hear from myself as my staff is doing the counts manually as they're sorting. They will bring back some numbers to me. I'll enter them into a spreadsheet. And if there's any discrepancies, I contact the library and just ask, why the discrepancies occurred. Oftentimes, those discrepancies are able to be explained, and sometimes they're not. So it just helps for me to be able to reach out to the libraries and get to the bottom of why there's a discrepancy. Those counts are extremely, extremely important. It helps with the proper funding, proper routing, all things related to delivery focus in on the volume that we receive from the libraries in these counts. So I cannot stress the importance of those counts enough to you. So the fourth item I have for you is the last day of school deliveries. Another thing, while I have a captive audience, I can go over the last day of school deliveries for this year, in which we will pause them for the summer. I have decided that the date for that will be Friday, May 28th. And you should all receive, if you are signed up as a system delivery contact, you will receive a notice from me by the end of this week, detailing that, putting that out in detail in an email. So again, that's Friday, May 28th, and more information to follow there. The last thing I have is any new director, any new staff that we have at libraries that we receive information about. We send out delivery welcome packets. If you are a new director and you have not received those welcome packets, or if you have new staff that would be interested in those welcome packets, I want to encourage you to reach out to me directly so that I can get those out to you. Those welcome packets contain a plethora of information about all of our Rails locations, the things I've gone over thus far, about L2, the delivery help desk, the delivery count, all basic things about delivery. So if you are interested in those, our wonderful admin team, we have a wonderful admin, her name is Karen Goyer, and she has done a phenomenal job of building those up for us managers. And I would like to start sending more of those out to assist libraries with delivery. One of my goals for the upcoming year is to be more engaged with the libraries and be more proactive to send out that help rather than just waiting for the questions to come in. I would rather just stay on top of things. So if there is any questions, I know Monica's going to talk next, but I would encourage you, we're going to do a little question and answer at the end. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them. I will also go ahead and post the delivery help desk email in the chat if you're unaware of it. It is real easy, just Rails delivery at railslibraries.info. So that's all I have. Thank you very much. And just another general statement. I do want to really thank all of you for all of your efforts during the pandemic to keep our staff safe, as well as your own staff. Setting things up like delivery contactless areas, and the communication that I receive from libraries, many of which I see here, about concerns about social distancing and things like that. I really want to give you all a pat on the back and say thank you very much for staying the course with remaining safe. So again, I'm going to turn it over to Monica. Thank you all very much. So.
Thank you, Robert. And let me just take an opportunity to echo a lot of what Robert is saying here. I think, this has been a really difficult time for libraries in general over the last year plus, and Rails has really relied on a lot of you and your libraries to really tell us what's going on, what you need, what some of your challenges are. And you have really stayed very communicative with us. It's really allowed us to try to meet your needs, and we really want to try to continue to do that. So please continue to share with us your experience and what's happening, pandemic related or not. We're pretty excited that we have a lot of things to talk about today. You can see that are not pandemic related, because for a while that was such a huge part of our focus. So thank you so much for all of those pieces and all of the amazing things that you all are doing. My name is Monica Harris. I'm the Associate Executive Director at Rails. I've been with Rails only since January of 2020, so I'm definitely the newbie on this panel in terms of what you guys are seeing. I know I've gotten a chance to meet quite a few of you through some of the networking meetings that some of the Rails staff have been going to meet you and hear more about what you're doing. But for those of you I haven't met yet, I am so looking forward to the opportunity to get to know you more as things normalize a little bit. I know that's something we're all looking forward to. So Anna, Dan, and Robert shared a lot of really amazing information with you all. I just want to highlight a couple of other things that are happening in Rails, and then as Robert mentioned, we will open it up for a Q&A. So you have an opportunity to ask any of the folks from Rails about what's going on and questions you have or comments you want to share. So the first thing I wanted to call your attention to was just some of the additional initiatives happening around equity, diversity, and inclusion at Rails. This has become a really big part of our focus in this last fiscal year, and it's going to continue to be in our next fiscal year. A lot of that comes from needs that are coming directly from our members who are really looking for ways to respond to equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives within their own libraries and their own communities, and really want to know what they can do in order to address their organizations. So first I'll start by sharing some of the things that Rails is doing internally. Rails has offered training to all Rails staff, and that includes all staff, including delivery. We've done 2 large, long trainings this year. We do about 4-hour Zoom trainings, which as anybody who's done a long Zoom training like that knows, it's not necessarily the ideal environment for a training, but this is really important information that we wanted to make sure everyone on our team was sharing. And so we're really glad that we've been able to do that. In addition to that, Rails has a climate team that's been developed in-house, which is there just to focus on the climate within the organization and have membership and representation from all areas of Rails so that those folks can continue to meet, talk about, and strategize for how Rails can be the best organization that it can be. So that group has been meeting for about a year and has been doing some really great work for Rails, and we're really pleased about that. One of the reasons we really wanted to focus on that is we thought it was very important for Rails to be doing this work on our own and within our own organization before we were trying to push out to really help all of our member organizations. So that has been really helpful for us. So we wanted to let you know that that's happening. In addition to that, Rails has a board committee that's focused specifically on EDI. And that group has been doing some really interesting work too. Just to let you know a little bit about what that committee does is they identify barriers in libraries in the library field, solutions to eliminate them. They develop ideas and programs to increase awareness about systemic racism and bias among member libraries, staff, and boards, and they're facilitating system-wide discussion about EDI. That group is really just starting to get to the meat of their work. They have 3 subcommittees also related to EDI that are focused on programs and outreach, another subcommittee focused on recruitment, hiring, and retention, and another subcommittee that's focused on staff training, leadership, and advocacy. And so those groups are starting to develop and work on their very first projects. And so we know you're going to start to see some real work coming out of those groups, which is something that Rails is really proud of. That we know we want to do educational work and we want to continue to offer CE, but we also want some really substantive kind of projects that are going to really help all of our member libraries. So wanted to share that with you. What I'm putting in the chat right now is just the link to the EDI Pulse page. This is where you'll see all of our newest information about events that are going on for continuing education. There's more information about the board committees and the work that they're doing. And we wanted to make sure you had a chance to see all of that. In addition to all of this kind of continuing education and board work that's going on at Rails, this year's continuing education grants that we're offering at Rails are also focused on EDI. We want to make sure that you know about that because Rails is offering training grants of up to $2,000 for libraries, networking groups, or library consortia. And this year, those grants can assist funding in training events in the areas of equity, diversity, and inclusion for library staff and board members. To qualify, the CE events must be made available to other Rails member libraries and may be of interest to a wide range of library staff and board members. But that is currently open. And it's the application deadline is May 31st. So this is a great time, especially if you're talking about at your library that you would like to hire somebody to come and talk about these things, to do a Zoom training, to try to work together with your board or library members or other member libraries and the networking groups you work in. This is a great opportunity for you to look at some of these things. So I just put that link there, but this is specifically about the CE grant, and we'll tell you more information about how you can get more involved. I'm sure that you all are aware of the quarantine requirement changes, but just since we're all meeting today, we thought we would again just reiterate that Rails is no longer requiring any kind of quarantine for delivery as of Monday, April 12th. That decision was made based on a number of factors, but specifically around most recently the CDC report that again reaffirmed many of the other studies that have been happening around how fomite transmission is not a significant form of transmission, even with the new variants, and that what we're seeing is person-to-person transmission is the highest transmission rate for COVID. So that does not mean that your library cannot continue to quarantine based on what is right for your community. All that means is that Rails is no longer requiring a delivery quarantine. And I did see a hand raised, and I know it's down now. There will be a moment to talk about some of these things in a little bit, and we can absolutely ask more questions about this, and I know I'm happy to answer them. We also just wanted to remind you that annual certification is right now. So I know many of you have probably already done your certification process, and I know we beat this drum a lot, but it is really, really important to complete that certification process. You can also do that through L2. So one more area that L2 is really important. And I will put in the chat the link that you need to go to. This is again due by May 15th. It doesn't take very long to complete. So if you haven't done that yet, take a look at it, see what you can do. There's also some videos about how to complete certification if you've never done it before. And there's of course many chances to ask questions about that as well. So we wanted to make sure you were also aware. Just a couple of extra things that I just want to throw out there because they're going on right now. It is also currently the Rails board election. The Rails board election is happening. Each library gets a vote, and the election just opened on April 21st, and it's open through May 7th. So the board election is a really great way to make sure that your voice is heard on the Rails board. There is a great slate of candidates there. And so I'm going to put this here, and just to remind you that just like anything else, these governance voting pieces are very important. So we want to make sure that you're aware. And lastly, we do have an upcoming Rails member update. Member updates are great places to hear more of this information. We have great speakers. We're going to speak to all kinds of things. Our next meeting is on Tuesday, April 27th from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. So that's coming up pretty quickly. You can also register for that program on L2. And that will include Greg Pronovich, who Dan mentioned earlier, talking about some things about the future of delivery. We've been working with Greg on some potential projects, including our RFP. Greg McCormick from the Illinois State Library will discuss the fiscal 22 state budget outlook for libraries and give the latest news on the American Rescue Plan Act and its impact on Illinois libraries. We are also going to be talking about Rails efforts to obtain statewide funding for a suite of electronic databases that would be available to all Illinois residents. So you'll hear more about that there, as well as more discounts and group purchase information and more about the reopening of Explore More Illinois. I just wanted to let you know, I know because museums have been closed, there hasn't been much happening with Explore More, but Explore More is open. And this is a great time to sign up for it if you haven't done that yet. So I want to encourage you to take a look at all of those things. I'm sorry to just keep putting all of these links here that look a little bit alike. But so this next one is, again, just to show off the member update. And then I'm going to put a link in here for Explore More Illinois, because if you haven't done that yet, it's such a wonderful resource to be able to share and offer to your patrons. And we have a lot of great museums that are starting to reopen on a limited basis. And so it's a great time to share some of those things if that's something of interest to you. So with that, I know I went a little bit fast through that. Are there any questions questions for any of us here at Rails. I know everybody's ready and willing to answer the questions that you have. And I see a hand raised from John Mosser. Anna, are they able to thanks.
Yeah, you should be able to unmute yourself and talk if you would like to, but if you are having trouble with that, let me know in the chat, I guess, if because if you can't unmute yourself, then that's the only way I'll hear from you. But yeah, for questions, I think feel free to unmute yourself and talk, or
Hey, yeah,
try
actually,
to seek acknowledgement.
someone sent me a message, and I will keep just anonymous. Not that it's a weird question, right? Whatever, but it's for Monica. It's regarding the EDI committee and subcommittee. The question is, are they looking for from input from member libraries? Will there be a survey, etc.?
We are actually in the beginning stages of talking about some surveys. The committee specifically has asked for survey information from members about several areas. And what we're trying to do is to come up with a survey so we can ask kind of about the broadest range of issues that might be affecting member libraries. So yes, a survey will definitely be coming. In the meantime, I do also want to remind anybody with interest in what's happening in these EDI, either subcommittees or committees, that these are public meetings. And so you can also attend, hear what they're talking about, hear where things are going and what they're discussing. And there's a public comment period. So if you have suggestions or if you have things you'd like to see, it's a great opportunity to do that. So I also want to highly encourage you to be involved in those committees however you can.
And whoever that is that's online from John Mosser, I'm apparently not able to unmute you. It just gives me the option to ask you to unmute. So if you want to just enter your question in the chat, and if that was the question that Dan just responded to, then I guess that's okay.
It was not.
Okay. Okay, but yeah, if you could enter your question into chat, since apparently I am somehow not able to unmute you, which is new to me. I am the host,
well,
right?
It looks like John did write in the chat that it was an accidental hand raise.
Oh, okay, accidental hand raise. Okay, sorry about that. All right. Okay, I will keep an eye on the chat for any other questions that may come in that way.
Any other questions from the group for Rails?
If you all are going to be quiet, I mean, we can talk a lot. We got 15 minutes, and we got a lot more to cover. So, I guess it's a Thursday morning. I guess we put in a lot of overwhelming information in there. So,
not a question, but Laura says, "Yay, Rails! You guys are doing great."
Thanks, Laura. We are really, lucky to have such an amazing team here at Rails. That's one thing that I know for me, being a new member of Rails, was really impressed with, just the level of dedication that the staff has really shown to member libraries. But a lot of that is also just because our member libraries are doing so much, and we are, again, so impressed with what you all have innovated, done, worked with what you had, especially over this last period. I know it's been really difficult, but hopefully there will be some kind of wonderful innovations that come out of this period as well.
Yeah, and I'll just throw another plug in there for Rails member updates that's happening next week. Since the pandemic started, we found that those meetings can be kind of cathartic in a way. I think it's a chance for a lot of us to come together in a big format, in sort of a big tent format, where we're able to talk about a lot of issues that matter, on a macro level, which I really like. You've got the macro level, and then maybe on the networking group side, you could kind of got more of a micro level where you can go and dig deeper into some subjects that impact your work and affect you every single day. So I enjoy those member updates. Maybe it's because I'm Rails staff, but I'm looking forward to seeing both of the Gregs presenting. We got two Gregs, and kind of learning a little bit more. I think Greg Pronovitz really knows what he's talking about in terms of when it comes to libraries, and this is someone that's been around libraries for a long time, and is doing a ton of study and has really spent a lot of time looking at Rails stuff. So he's gonna be fun to talk about. And then Greg McCormick from the Illinois State Library, who I think he's got a good presenting style. I like the way he talks about it, and he seems to know a lot about the inner workings of the Springfield machine and everything like that. So it's fun to find out more information from him.
I gotta admit, I'm shocked that there are no delivery related questions. You have all surprised me.
I do not see anything additional popping up in the chat. So. Well, I guess panelists, if you did have something that you had cut from your presentation for length and would like to get into it now, I think this is probably your chance.
Well, can I share a little bit of something? So I mentioned earlier that when through the pandemic, so since 2020, we really weren't able to meet with a lot of libraries. There was a great idea that we start to make sure that we are attending some of the networking meetings to really just hear directly from people. And those meetings were really fantastic because we were able to really hear what people were doing, what they were working on, and what they were thinking about. One thing I do want to call your attention to is that a lot of the stories that came out of those meetings ended up on our My Library Is blog. So I know Dan mentioned My Library Is earlier, but there are so many great stories about what your colleagues are doing on the blog. They really share how they have, kind of made the best of a lot of situations and how their community has responded. They might be great ideas for things to do in your community, or they might just be a great way, to talk to your boards or your neighbors about how libraries are innovating in the face of some really incredible challenges. So I'm going to put that in the chat. Just so you get a chance to take a look at that and encourage you that if you have a little extra time, it's well worth your time to look at these things. And then it looks like there's a question in the chat.
Yes. Okay, so well, I've always wondered if there's a way to extract the delivery count information from workflows rather than having staff physically count each item going into the bin. Is this a possibility? It would be something like a number of items put in transit on a particular date. Could be worth exploring.
Yeah, that's something I unfortunately can't answer since I have nothing to do with workflows.
yeah, delivery couldn't do it directly since they don't have access to workflows. Kendall, I don't know if you could hear, but if you have any thoughts on on that.
Can you repeat the question?
Would there conceivably be a way to extract delivery count information from workflows rather than having library staff physically count the items as going into the bin? Possibly a report of number of items put into transit on a particular date or something like that.
I can count the number of items put in transit on a particular date. And I do, in fact, count the number of transits. Actually, I count received transits, but you can count items put into transit as well. The issue is that is not a full count of what is going into delivery. It is just a count of how many times something got scanned. So we have libraries that double scan items to ensure that their staff didn't make a scanning mistake. Mm-hmm. And so those libraries have twice the transit counts that libraries that don't double scan do. Anything that was not checked out in RSA or anything that came from another library or items that you're putting in transit that you're not checking out through workflows, none of those would ever show up in the system. So it's an interesting number to know. It is not the number of things that go into transit. And also it's very, very hard to get per library transit counts that are accurate. Just because that is not something that gets logged like this title was put into transit at this time and this thing, right? Very little transit information for items that are not currently in transit. Things that are currently in transit, I can tell you every one of them and when they started and when they finished. But when they are received from transit, all I know is that it got transited.
That makes sense.
Thanks for that question, Larissa. Anybody else with a question that we can answer for you all today? Well, then, if I can just say on behalf of Rails, I really appreciate the time to talk with you all today. I know that we have a lot of chances to hopefully reach out to you with information. But and it looks like there's a question in here from Laura Keys. So is the EDI committee looking into just racial diversity or also gender? Yes, there are several areas of diversity that the EDI committee is looking at. So race is definitely one of them, but there are also issues related to language, issues related to gender, issues related to sexuality, issues related to disability. And so there are many, many, many different pieces that the EDI committee is looking at. One thing that I do want to make sure to share is, of course, as we all know, these are huge, huge systemic issues, and that we know that we have to kind of start somewhere and continue to move forward. So the committee is very aware of the responsibilities that they have in these areas, but also aware that they have to kind of bite off small projects, move them forward, and then continue to add other things that will be helpful to libraries in this area. But that said, I think any suggestions that you have for things that would be particularly important to your community and area and things that you would like to know, the committee is very interested in hearing more about that and open to that. The other thing I wanted to point out is that we were really happy with the diversity of the committee itself, both in terms of geographic diversity, so people coming from all different areas in the Rails membership service area, and then also people coming from all different library types, as well as committee members themselves identifying as many different areas in terms of the diversity that they're looking at themselves. So I think it's a very good group that has come together around this. But as we said, we know that none of us are experts in everything, and that we're all just looking for ways to get better at what we're doing organizationally. Thank you for that question, Laura. I hope that answers what you were looking for. Anything else we can answer today? Okay.
All right. Well, I will end the recording and work on getting this posted to the YouTube channel pretty quickly here. After the session this afternoon, which is the last one of our little, RSA Day event for this year, I will get them all posted to the YouTube channel, and I'll be sending a listserv post with links to the recording. So if there was anyone at your library who was not able to attend any of the sessions, you will have access to those. So expect that email either later this afternoon or tomorrow morning. So. All right. Thank you all. I will stop the recording now.